What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the crew 2, and in this video I want to take a look at the Mazda RX-3 Supercharged Edition. So if you might have been wondering, this is basically going to be like an upgraded version of the regular RX-3 that is going to be available in the HQ for everybody if you guys do want to get this thing. I do believe this car is like 222,000, and to be honest, it's actually going to be a really good vehicle, especially the fact that it's going to be a 4-speed as well. I was honestly pretty impressed with it. So I have done a couple of races with the RX-3 Supercharged Edition. I'm not going to lie, this car is really not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I really did think it was going to struggle, but it doesn't seem as bad as I thought. It also has pretty dang good handling, which I'll get into more of that here in a second. But if you guys might have been wondering, by the way, in order to get this vehicle, you're going to have to buy the Motor Pass and hit level 13. But to be honest, I do think the cars in this Motor Pass are pretty awesome, and the RX-3 definitely has a really cool body kit on it. And just in case you guys might have been wondering, because this is a Motor Pass vehicle, you will not be able to customize pretty much anything on this, but you luckily can remove the livery if you would like to. But personally, I do think the livery on this car does look pretty awesome, so I also did take a look at the regular RX-3 just to see if you can actually build that vehicle up to look like this one. So a few things I did notice, by the way. For one, you cannot get that front bumper with the intercooler going into the headlight, which, by the way, I do like the detail of that. I think that looks awesome. I also noticed you cannot get these rims either, which I really do love the color design on those with the black and then the blue going around them to actually match the vehicle there, plus obviously the blue color on the mirrors as well. I also couldn't really find the exact same wing, but I do think one does look pretty similar to that. And the other thing I also noticed is you cannot get this rear bumper with the dual exhaust coming out either. But besides that, it's basically going to be the exact same car. Now, one big question I've been asking myself: is this Motor Pass version of the RX-3 going to be better than the regular one that you can purchase in the HQ for around $220,000? I have heard around that this vehicle is actually going to be a little worse, which from the testing I have done, I do think the handling on the Motor Pass RX-3 is pretty dang good, but I did notice one thing about the top speed that was kind of interesting. But besides that, I would say the cars are going to be pretty similar for the most part. But if I have to admit one thing, I would say the Supercharged Edition is probably going to look a lot better than the regular RX-3, at least that's what I have noticed. I love how the body kit looks on this car, plus that livery, those rims. I do think this car does look a lot better, but it really does come down to how the performance of this vehicle is, because I know a lot of players do like racing these cars around, and I would say the regular RX-3 is one of the best 4-speed transmission vehicles I've driven in the entire game. But anyway, let's go do a quick outside look of this vehicle right now. Then I also want to take this car on a quick top speed test, just to see how it might compare to the regular RX-3 that's already in the game. Then we definitely have to jump into a street race to test out this vehicle's overall performance. And now, arriving outside with the new RX-3 Supercharged Edition, I think we can all agree Ubisoft did a really good job with the design of this vehicle. I personally love how the rims look on here. I really do wish we can actually color the rims on other cars like this and or do them more in detail. But who knows, maybe we will be able to do that in the future. Then I do think the front bumper on this car looks awesome with the intercooler on the right side there, with the hoses going into where the light would normally be. I think that looks awesome. So I would say the overall design of the Supercharged Edition is probably going to look a lot better than the base RX-3. Now, one thing I also noticed, guys, is the interior in this vehicle doesn't seem to look any different than the other one as well. So for this, you obviously have the wood there on the steering wheel, and then moving the analog stick down, you can kind of see the detail of this as well. So you unfortunately cannot change anything in the interior of this vehicle. I do believe on the other one, you can change the interior color of that car just a little bit, but even then it's still very limited. Unfortunately, with the Supercharged Edition though, you will not be able to change anything in this one. So now moving over to the top speed test of the Supercharged RX-3, so I have a feeling this vehicle is going to be very similar to the other one. Now, what's kind of interesting is the fact that sometimes the Motor Pass cars are not as good as the other vehicles in the game, or even the base cars are a lot better than the Motor Pass vehicles, basically vice versa. And it's kind of funny how that works, because you would think one car is better than the other, but then again, I have a feeling this car is just going to have a really cool looking body kit on it. It's really not as bad as I thought it was going to be. This car does handle pretty nicely. But I have noticed one big drawback with it, and that's going to be the fact that, well, for some odd reason, guys, this car is going to be slower than the regular Mazda as well. So if you guys might have been wondering, the regular RX-3 can actually hit 249 to 250 miles an hour depending on the road you are on, and it looks like this vehicle does 245, which is honestly not that big of a deal. It's only 5 to 6 miles an hour depending on where you are on the road, which I don't think that's going to make much of a difference depending on the race you are doing. I mean, 5 miles an hour though, if the race is a little bit longer, that could make up a bit of a difference on your time. But then again, it really does come down to the handling and stability of the vehicle, which I have to admit, both cars do seem to be very similar with their acceleration and or handling. I think the biggest difference with them is probably going to be the body kit, which if you really wanted to, you could probably make the regular RX-3 kind of similar to this one, but there is going to be some features on the Supercharged Edition that I do think look a lot better. And now moving over to one of my favorite street races in the entire game is going to be the Flashback Japan. I really don't know why I like testing vehicles out on this race, but I really did want to test out the RX-3 on here, just to see how it might do around one of the tighter tracks compared to something that might be a little bit longer. So I'm sure a lot of players notice instantly with the Supercharged Edition that this vehicle is going to be a little bit slower than the regular RX-3, which I did find that to be kind of odd. But then again, 5 to 6 miles an hour I don't think is going to really hurt this vehicle all that much, especially on like a track like this. And one thing I do have to admit, guys, is the overall handling on this vehicle definitely seems to be really good. I'm actually really impressed with it. I was expecting this car to like struggle and or have some issues on some turns, but it's actually handling similar to some of the better street cars in the game. And with this being, well, a 4-speed, we all know how sometimes these can be very hard to drive, and or I know a lot of players are probably not big fans of them. For me personally, I probably don't drive these cars enough and or really test them out enough, which I'm planning to do more in the future to really see how they do compare to regular vehicles. But if you guys are running manually, 4 speeds are definitely going to be a bit of a challenge to get used to, because I did find myself, for one, downshifting on some turns. For example, that turn that I just passed over there, I did end up downshifting on that one run, and my goodness, I was in second gear basically redlining it, like why am I not going faster? So you will have to get used to shifting the car a bit more with these, and or probably less as well depending on what you're doing. But besides that, I would say the Supercharged is going to be a really cool car, and it's definitely one of my favorite looking vehicles as well. I just like how the body kit looks on this vehicle. It fits it very nicely, and the overall livery does fit it really good as well. So I do think they did a great job with it. Every vehicle in this Motor Pass does seem to look pretty awesome. Looking forward to testing out that Viper, because for some odd reason they made that thing look just like an ACR, but who knows, guys, maybe we can get a legit ACR in the future. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the Mazda RX-3 Supercharged Edition in the comments below, and I will also show you the settings I'm currently running on this vehicle that do seem to be pretty dang good.